When someone dies in Judaism, we say, may their memories be for blessing. Does anyone know what we say when someone is murdered? Adonai yakum damam. May God cause their blood to rise up from the ground and wreak vengeance upon their murderer. The words, blood to rise up, come from the story of the brothers Cain and Abel from this week's Torah portion, Bereshit. Adam and Eve, the first humans in our Torah narrative, are expelled from the Garden of Eden, and they set up camp east of there. They have children named Cain and Abel. Cain is jealous of his brother Abel and conspires to commit the world's first murder. When God sees that Cain has committed this murder, God confronts Cain and dresses him down, saying, Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. The story, the parable in our Torah, is here to ask us this question: is humanity doomed to an unending cycle of violence and bloodshed? Are war and murder our inevitable nature? Or may we overcome the human instinct for revenge? Israel has been attacked, and we are frightened. We are angry. We are sad. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. It took courage to step through those doors this evening, and I honor your courage. The truth is, we have emotional whiplash. We just finished the high holidays. A few weeks ago, we remember, just recently, the discussion about protests about a judicial overhaul in Israel. That seems like 1,000 years ago, and all of a sudden it has been replaced with a Spielbergian battle between light and darkness, like that. On my way to the rally at the JCC on Tuesday, someone walking with me in a group said, "Hey, I guess we're all in the same boat now." And a few weeks ago, the funny thing is, this person would have said, if I'd asked them about their relationship with Israel, they would have used words from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. They would have said, it's more nuanced than that. But it turns out that in the face of conflict, we are forced to choose a side. And there is little room now for discussion. Over the past week, our fight or flight reflexes have been activated. I have been asked questions by members of this community about the deployment of security assets, about patrol frequencies and blast radiuses, and I was honorably discharged, and so I do not need to answer those questions anymore, but I will do my best. All of us will do our best, to ensure that we work with law enforcement to make sure we are as safe as we can be. Some of the things people requested that we do, I would be shocked if I found on many military bases in this country. But I understand this building is filled many days of the week with children. For our part, your community has been in communication with law enforcement. We've been dealing with, of course, pastoral concerns, and we've been raising funds for security and for Magen David Adom, the Israeli Red Cross, for lack of a better term, Red Star. But while we do that, we are concerned about the blurring of the lines between news, opinion and entertainment. We feel that real, solid journalism, real reporting is important, but it is harder and harder to find, and we have to make more and more of an effort. We may feel that some people listening to this news are enjoying it just a little bit too much. We may be worried that this conflict will spread. And we're surprised by what political leaders and college professors across this country are saying about Israel. And if they're saying it about Israel, do they make a distinction between Israelis and the Israeli administration and American Jews? We ask ourselves all the time. Some of us fear that a relative or friend may be captured, held hostage, may be killed. We all dread that conversation. And we fear that a regional conflict in Israel could blow up into an existential war leading to a worldwide final solution. But I am here to reassure you that that will not happen. Classic American author and legendary figure John Steinbeck explored the question of whether humans are doomed to murder and violence or we can rise above in his 1952 novel, East of Eden. Part of the way through the novel, farmers Adam and Samuel and their adopted relative Lee are discussing the story of Cain and Abel. And Lee says that he comes from the Chinese tradition, and Chinese scholars were baffled by this story. They wanted to know what the moral was, and so they studied Hebrew for years. Rabbis were consulted. Lee was obsessed with one verse in particular. What does God mean when God is yelling at Cain for murdering his brother? Here is what God says. My eyes are not as good as they used to be. Elohim tetiv sehetiv ve'im elo tetiv lepetach atat rovetz ve'elecha teshukato ve'atati mishal bo. Surely, if you do right, there is hope of uplift. But if you do not, sin couches at your door. Its urges towards you, but the entirety of Steinbeck's novel, his greatest work, was based on how you translate the word timshol. Lee says that the word, if it's translated one way, means that sin will overcome us and we have no free will, no ability to make a better choice in the future. But Lee says that it should be translated. Does anyone remember? Anybody remember? You not you will overcome it. Thou mayest overcome it. And in so doing, in saying thou mayest or you may, God is essentially saying that we humans have a choice and a responsibility in how we act. The rabbis that Lee consulted apparently gave him a version of a classic rabbinic commentary from Ovadia ben Sforno, writing around 500 years ago in Italy, who was quoting the Talmud before him. He says, Ve'ata timshol bo, that phrase means it is within your power, human beings, all human beings, to overcome the evil urge present in you, thanks to your aspect of Tselem Elohim, the spark of divinity that is present in every human being. But tonight, these words are cold comfort. For many of us, not all of us, but for many of us, this is a moment we have been warned about our entire lives. We were warned. The human beings around you are bloodthirsty. They are sharpening their knives, just waiting to kill us, as they did in Mainz and Pittsburgh and in Auschwitz. Rabbi Bradley Shavit Artson, some of you remember him, used to travel around the country, and he would, when he was speaking, he would walk into a room of Jews and say, without any explanation, "Could it happen here? Could it happen here?" And everyone listening to him in the room knew what it was. By it, of course, he meant another crusade, another pogrom, another Holocaust. Could it happen here? As Jews, we think a lot about the Holocaust. The expulsion from North Africa, the Jews who left North Africa or Ethiopia, Yemen. We repeat stories of our persecution in our children's cartoons. How many of you remember the origin story of the Mauskowitz family? Not Moskowitz, Mauskowitz. The protagonists of Steven Spielberg's Fievel movies? Remember? They were chased out of their homes during Hanukkah by Cossacks, by cat Cossacks, because he was a mouse. And they fled, and they came to America, where there was religious freedom and opportunity, where they would not be persecuted. And as we heard, our sisters and brothers in faith, and our civic leaders, and our representatives of our community organizations say, this is a country founded on the freedom from being persecuted for your faith. But we still show those films. And for adults, when you're no longer able to watch Fievel, or you can still watch it, but if it no longer speaks to you in the same way, as an adult, you can watch another Spielberg film, Schindler's List. We marinate in this. And for rabbis, every year at Yom Kippur, we retell the story of the martyrdom of Rabbi Akiva, his skin scraped off with combs as he died reciting the Shema, the words of faith that we said together earlier, giving his life to stop the Romans from stamping out the Jewish people. But despite the best efforts of the Nazis, the Jewish people were not wiped out in the gas chambers. Despite the efforts of the Crusaders, the Jewish people were not killed all in the Rhineland. Despite the efforts of the Romans, we did not all get wiped out in the diaspora. We are still here. The Jewish people are still here. We are here now. We will be here tomorrow, and we will be here a millennium from now. Moreover, this week, throughout the world, networks of like-minded Jews and our friends of all faiths and none are joining together to condemn the horrific atrocities we have seen this week. It is my job as your rabbi to assure you that we can hope for a better future because of the people who took their time on a Friday night being called at the last minute and showed up for us. Our law enforcement, our civic officials, our sisters and brothers in faith, community leaders and business partners that have been calling with calls of solidarity and support. We often give in to the human negativity bias, but there are more people in this country who wish to help us than wish to hurt us. Because of this cooperation, we may look forward to a better future built on peace rather than fear and vengeance. Timshol, thou mayest. We mayest yet rise to the occasion. Nay, we are rising to the occasion. We are joined on the bima tonight by our hard-working board, who have been tirelessly attending to the needs of this community behind the scenes. We have been encouraged by the work of the Board of Rabbis, the Federation, the JCC, and the ADL that have risen to the occasion to denounce terrorism and barbarism and call the community together. Our staff has risen to the occasion at every level. From the top of our leadership pyramid to everyone who works in this facility, Jewish or not, at every level, who takes their lives in their hands every time they come to work in the morning or the evening. We thank you. I wish I could share everything that's been done behind the scenes, the depths of my appreciation, but alas, I cannot, because some of it is confidential, and also I would keep you here all night because my grandmother of blessed memory taught me to say thank you, and I would say thank you to each person in great detail. But some of you would like to eat eventually. I would like to thank all of you, because on this night, when we wanted to respond with fear and anger, we responded with gentleness and generosity. That is the Jewish way to respond. To use our minds and our hearts and to reach out to our society and to feel them reaching back in support of us. Steinbeck said once about Cain and Abel, on which he based East of Eden, and I quote, "Here is individual responsibility and the invention of conscience. You can if you will, but it is up to you. You can if you will." This little story from the Bible, he said, turned out to be one of the most profound in the world. I always felt it was, but now I know it is. You can if you will. That sounds familiar to me. When I first read it, I couldn't figure out why. And then I was reminded of a song I sang in summer camp. Im tirtzu, ein zo agada, la 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 la, leotam chovshi be'artzeinu, be'eretz Sion, Sion, Yerushalayim. If you will it, you can accomplish it. It is no dream. To be a free people in the land of Zion and Jerusalem. Words from Theodor Herzl, the visionary who dared say that Jews might feel at home in a democratic, modern Zion, the state of Israel. Alas, this Shabbat, the urge to scream, Adonai Yakum Damam, may God grant revenge by the spilling of our enemies' blood, that urge is strong. We are afraid, and our urge is to attack. But such a violent sentiment feels out of place for such a peace-loving people as the Jews. Our tradition asks of us, God asks of us, as he asks of Cain, not to give in to cynicism about the human condition, and to remember that even though war may be necessary, peace is always more desirable than war. The days ahead will be hard, but the Jewish people will survive. This will be a marathon, not a sprint, and so it will draw on your endurance. But we have endured, we are enduring, and we will endure. When we ask ourselves, in this moment of darkness, of despair, and of fear, dare we still hope? I say to you, Timshol, thou mayest. Shabbat Shalom, and Am Yisrael Chai. We will continue on 64. Please rise for Elena.